All right. What is up, mother truckers? Oh, gosh. Oh, brother. I knew this would happen. Let me get squared away here. Okay. Yes. Up here. Hey, we found it. How is everybody doing tonight? This lovely night. We're going to talk about a few different things here. One of the big ones is going to be, how do we fix the Challenge Cup? I'm not saying this is like the end all be all or I have the answers, but this would certainly be. What do you need, sweetie?
So, sorry.
All right, here we go. Anyway, so I don't know that I have necessarily all the answers, but I feel like this would be a great place to start. And like I said, we're going to do the usual. We'll let everybody file in about 10 minutes or so, and then we'll kind of dive into the hot topics here. So I'm going to make a footnote of what you said here, Matthew. Move. Because I have feelings on moving states. I have feelings on that I want to make sure I cover. Tony, so the Challenge Cup, like it's not necessarily like it's rules per se, but I feel like there could be some like checks and balances put in place that could certainly help the situation, if that makes sense. As far as like choosing who gets to go and that kind of thing. If that you know what I mean. How's the audio sound? Do I sound okay? Okay, there we go. Okay, there we go. Yeah, Tony. Stipulations like I said, it's more of what can we do to make this not feel like buddy ball. Is where we're going with that. But like I said, we'll get there. One topic at a time, though. I don't want to get too far into this because I'm still giving people time to file in. Actually, I had a pretty decent turnout here off the rip. That's kind of surprising. Well, hey, welcome, guys. I hope you're having fun, enjoying yourselves. If you do think of any questions or comments or topics or anything like that you do want to discuss or hear discussed, we can certainly do that. No reason we can't. Just mention it. If we feel like it's worth chatting about, we'll chat about it. Hope you guys enjoyed the Throwback Thursday today. That was pretty fun. That was a pretty fun video. I remember when Dennis sent it to me, he's like, hey, he sends it out, and he's like, hey, man, why don't you just hang on to it? Somebody gave it to me, and I know you like him, so you can just have it. And I was like, dude, that's legit. So I'm gonna dig that thing out for a tournament or a league game or something like that and see if we can't do some damage with it. Brian Fisk, yeah, we do need some more hats. We need a lot of things around here. I would like to come up with a new design. I think I did the graphite and the black in this design first, and then this came second, just a different colorway, same exact design. I think I might do this in this design and then do something different in the black and I really like the black and graphite colorway. I might do a different logo with it though, because I feel like it matches with anything. Probably gonna do some shirts here soon too. See what Ian's doing. Adrian says he bought a combat last season and didn't have good luck with it. Barrel and handle separated. Oh wow! Now, was that what combat was that? Was that like a 2023 combat or something like that? Because those aren't actual combats. Jason Hayes says he doesn't understand how Calvin is from Missouri playing for the Illinois Challenge Cup. There was a handful of Missouri guys playing on a different state's Challenge Cup team. I don't know. I'll get into that. Yeah, so the Revolt, yeah. Yeah, let me double check that. Yeah, so for sure the Combat Revolt is just I hate the term repaint, but it's a Worth or a Mikan or an Easton that they just decided to like kind of take advantage of selling the name a little bit maybe. That's not an actual Combat. Combat went out of business. Somebody help me. 2015, maybe 2016. They officially sold out and quit producing slow pitch bats. I believe for another couple of years they made hockey gear or lacrosse gear. I believe now I don't even think that's a thing anymore either. Yeah, so they haven't made bats in quite a while. I do have a theory, and I won't share it until I know for sure. But I have a theory that that factory might be operational, and I think there's some bats coming out of there that are pretty good. I don't want to speak on it until I know for sure, because I need to make some phone calls soon, because I want to work on getting a bat for a project I want to work on for the channel, just to kind of help demonstrate a few different things. All I'll say is what I think might be coming out of that factory based on a couple of things that I've seen is chop chop. That's all I'm going to say. So coming up on that 10-minute mark, then we will get started with the podcast. So David is going to lead us off with our first topic here, which is a really good one. It's going to kind of roll into the topic of the night, which is obviously the Challenge Cup. Oh, goodness. Let's see. Adrian says he just got back into slow pitch. Okay, that's cool. That's cool. Welcome back to the game, my friend. Get yourself Louisville or Pure and just swing out of your shoes. That's the play these days. All right, so 10-minute mark has been hit. Let's get into this at least a little bit. So I put on Facebook tonight that I wanted to... Oh, what up, Adam? Fat Guy BP in the house. Everybody say what's up to Adam. Ryan wants to know, can we talk about some of these 40 and over guys swinging senior bats? Yeah, that's what I'm saying, dude. Yeah, it's wild. I kind of talked about that a little bit last night while it was live. Dude, it's wild. To fathom, like 10 years ago, obviously senior ball's been a thing for a while, right? But 10 years ago, if you'd have told me that like somebody 40 years old could swing a senior bat, I'd been like, no shot. I mean, there's guys that are in their 50s hitting senior bats, and I'm like, I wouldn't stand in front of that. Like, I wouldn't stand in front of that guy. There's a handful of guys, even just from around here, that are in their 50s that I wouldn't stand in front of a U-trip ball that they hit. So give them a senior bat, forget about it. So I made the post on Facebook, just trying to get a handful of topics in. David Truax had a pretty good one here, just off the rip, and it's kind of an interesting thing because I'm actually debating making a change on the channel, and it revolves around hardcores. So if you're not familiar with U-Trip or softballs or familiar with softball technology, I'm just going to give my speculation on what I feel like the hardcore ball is. So U-Trip switched from the Classic M to the Pro M. And the idea behind switching to the Pro M was a ball that would withstand the heat a little bit better than a Classic M. And it was also supposed to be tuned for the 240 bats a little bit better. And then out of nowhere comes the Pro M is rumored to be a 44-375. I still have yet to see like any actual specs from like a reliable source on what the ball actually is. Like, I'm not taking, Jim Bob's Ball Company putting on their specs on their website what the ball is. Like I want to see what U-Trip says a Pro M should be. I don't want to see what somebody thinks it should be. People say 44-300. People say 40. People say 44-375. People say 44-400. People say 40-400. It's speculated to be a 44-375 has been the most reliable report that we get on it. And if you're an OG, then you remember stuff like the Evil microcell, the X-Rock that had the microcell technology, the Deadly Thunder Advances. Those balls were insane. I mean, absurd to hit, and I mean, they were absolute rockets. And if you paid attention, you noticed that they all had like a little bit of a squish in the cover, right? Well, out of nowhere, I mean, literally out of the blue, comes the Deadly Thunder ZN Pro M with a little hardcore stamp on it. And I get my hands on a couple of these, and the first thing I notice right away is it's squishy. It's squishy just like the old Thunder Advances. I'm going off the Thunder Advances because it's a comparison because Dudley makes the Thunder ZN Pro M and the Thunder Advance. So it's got like that little bit of squish in the cover, which there's lots of rumors on what the softer cover actually did. There's rumor that says the softer cover was a way to manipulate the ball to get it to pass testing. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. As far as like from a durometer standpoint, as far as like how far the ball compresses, I can't give the exact science to that because I don't know. But that is what is speculated from reliable sources to be that this softer cover kind of gives the ball. You can put a harder ball underneath it basically, and it'll fool whatever the test is that the balls go through, but then they perform like whatever hard ball they are underneath. And out of nowhere comes the Pro M. And the 240s, you could make the argument to a certain extent, I feel like, that we didn't gain a lot with the 240s from a performance and like safety standpoint. And that was kind of like the sales pitch behind switching from the 220 to the 240 was a little bit of safety and a little bit of regulation to let the bats not get so low. Because you take a 220 bat, manufacturers had it figured out. They figured out how to make it pass whatever test it needed to at U-Trip, but you put 100 swings on it and it's testing 180. Manufacturers had it figured out. So we go to the 240 thinking something that's going to hold compression, break in slower, be less performing. And I think really all we did was make a bat with a smaller sweet spot. Obviously, the compression is going to tell you that they are testing higher. You don't see, obviously, outside of a handful of manufacturers, I say handful like it's a bunch, but there's a couple of manufacturers that I've seen 240s get under 200 and live there. And I don't, something's going on there. That's all I'm going to say. So I don't feel like we've gained a lot. And even, dude, I'm telling you, like, even hitting these Louisville, I'm not trying to sound full of praise here. Hitting some of these Louisville 240s, I'm like, man, this ain't far from a good like a good 220 bat. The only thing I'll say about the 240s that I've noticed across the board is the fact that they are less forgiving. The thing with the 220 was literally anybody, I'm talking anybody, could hit a ball 300 feet. Anybody had home run power. Anybody had the ability to just blow a ball past someone because you couldn't miss. Literally, the entire bat was the sweet spot on every single bat. It was wild. It was absolutely wild. And then to watch the switch to the 240, you see the guys that should be hitting balls 350 still hitting them 350, and the guys that were hitting them 350 with a 220 bat are now hitting them 290. And that's a bit of an exaggeration. It's not 60 feet difference, but more the point of the guys that are hitting home runs are still hitting home runs. The guys that didn't have business hitting them, they're not hitting them anymore. And it was a good thing. I feel like that was really good for the game. And sorry, I got distracted reading the chat. Is it a town in Alaska? Touche, sir. I felt like it was good for the game to dumb the bats down. But I'm not sure where we're at with that these days. I'm not sure what we gained. So they went with a lesser performing bat. And I think there was a lot of pushback. I think there was complaints at higher levels. And you know, it's like, oh, one of those like, oh, God, what do we do things? Bam, out comes the Pro-Am out of nowhere. Which is essentially, I feel like hitting a Thunder Advance again. Hitting a multi-layer ball. It holds up in the heat. And just like those balls behaved, they're still hard in the cold, but they're almost too hard, if that makes sense. I feel like when you get some of those balls, the temperature gets too low, it makes the bat react too much, and then you lose a little bit of performance. Like, I'd much rather, if it's 70 degrees or cooler, you know, I'm not talking like 78, 79. I'm talking like 70 degrees or cooler. I would rather hit a Classic M than I would a Pro-M, even a hardcore. Well, a hardcore might be a stretch. But the difference in ball technology going from the 220 to the 240, and now we're going to the 240 with the hardcore ball, I'm not sure we gained anything. So David's question was, are hardcores ruining the game? I don't think they're ruining the game per se, but it's a game changer, if that makes sense. I feel like we're kind of back to square one with all the reason we made the equipment change. I hate the argument of, oh, manufacturers did it for the money. I don't buy into that, because, like, why? So every bat manufacturer then has to redesign, try new standards, try new things, instead of sticking with what they know. Now they have to design a bat for a new standard. Think of the hours that go into that, the money that goes into that, the testing that goes into that, the manufacturing that goes into that, just to see if a bat's going to be good. You know, that's kind of the big thing to me is, like, why would a manufacturer shoot themselves in the foot like that? That's my argument to people saying, oh, it's a money grab to get new bats off the shelves. But why would they just shoot themselves directly in the foot with you know, I mean, that's like bang, just blowing your toe off to completely switch standards, and now you have to re-engineer everything. I just don't buy into that. I think it was a U-trip thing. I think it was a safety thing was the main reason that it was a thing, and I agreed with the change. I like it. And then the hardcore comes along, messes it all up. We're just about back to square one, which, U-Trip for the I'll say the last. This is my personal opinion. I feel like U-Trip for the last 4 or 5 years, maybe even a little bit longer than that. Dude, it's playing the infield at times against like good competition can be a death wish, especially pitching. Like pitchers at the C and D level, like from like C up, from like high tier C teams and up, pitchers should be defenseless at times. I shouldn't say should be, like, it's a good thing, but from a performance standpoint with the player, yeah, I mean pitchers should be rendered defenseless at times just because of the performance and the athlete. But we got guys playing D. There's pitchers that they don't even move. And I understand we're talking like maybe the pitcher might not be as good, but I've even seen good pitchers that could hang at a higher level either get hit or just be, rendered defenseless. Like they can't even see it go by you. Like I've pitched some D ball and had stuff hit by me like you didn't even see it. Like I feel like that's the problem. My answer to all of this, nobody's gonna like. Let's hit 52s. Let's mix it all up and hit 52s. Again, the people that should be hitting home runs will still hit home runs. The balls are good in the heat. They stay the same in the cold. A hitter will still be a hitter. I don't care if you think it's a pillow or it's mushy or it's a sock and they're not fun to hit in the heat. Well, guess what? It's about being a hitter. If you're a hitter, if you're so good at softball that you're on this awesome team and you should win every tournament, then you should know how to improvise and use different equipment and still be good. You shouldn't have to rely on the equipment to be good. I feel like there are teams and there are players that rely on the equipment to be good. It would be interesting to see. And people don't sign up for these events, and there's a reason why. Like, give me a wood bat tournament with some 52s. What a better way to just weed out the guys that can hit and the guys that can't, the guys that can still improvise. Cool, yeah. You spent a lot of time this offseason learning how to hit a ball 320 feet so you can be a home run hitter on your team now. That's awesome, dude. Like, you improved and you got better. But if you can't hit a home run, what can you do? If you can't hit a ball, we got people chasing radar numbers all over the internet. Everybody's got a pocket radar. Everybody wants to post these numbers, and everybody wants to talk about these numbers. Like, what's it matter if you can't do it consistently? If you can do those numbers consistently, that's a good thing. Because guess what? You got your wood bat and your 52. It ain't gonna slow you down. But when you're hitting the number that you think you should be hitting, 1 out of every 10 swings, you get a wood bat and a 52, and you're gonna be a disaster, bro. Bottom line. My change, I don't think hardcores are ruining the game, but it's not helping. Get some classic pluses out, just like Snack said. Tony says move the pitcher's mound back to help save the pitchers. As a pitcher, I can tell you I don't want the mound back. NSA is 52 feet, and it sucks. Like, if you play sanctioned NSA, is it 52 or 53? Dude, it's not fun. Even just going from I'm sure you'd get used to it eventually, but it changes a lot of things. It changes how the pitch is delivered. It changes how the pitch comes in. It changes like how I want to pitch because it's something I'm not used to. And like I said, maybe you could get used to it. Okay, so it is 53. I remember playing a couple of NSA tournaments, and there's somebody in this chat that knows exactly what I'm talking about. I go to this NSA tournament, and some feathers were ruffled that I made an appearance on the team when I did. And I don't regard myself as like some kind of conference level pitcher, but I feel like I'm a fairly decent pitcher. And I'm here to make a difference. This team needed a difference made, and I was here to make a difference. And I was terrible. I ended up walking enough guys in the first 2 games that by the 3rd game came around, it was just like, what am I doing here? I ended up digging splinters out of my ass for the rest of the day. And that's a true story. I don't mind telling it. But just that adjustment just absolutely killed me. That's not the first time that it did that to me. We were playing here in Columbia in an NSA tournament, and the same thing happened. I was like, man, I can't get it there. And then I realized I'm 3 feet further back. So then I had to resort to completely changing how I wanted to pitch and just pray that it could get strikes across. So moving back, the pitcher's mound may not necessarily be the answer. I definitely respect that answer. Pitcher's equipment, safety equipment should be required. And I don't know. It's one of those arguments, you don't want the heat stay out of the kitchen, right? But at the same time, like, who the hell wants to stand in a kitchen full of flames? you know? But let's talk about the Challenge Cup. And what we can do about it. So for those that don't know, like, the Challenge Cup is essentially supposed to be, let's break it down from what the Challenge Cup is supposed to be. It's supposed to be every state's opportunity to put the best team out there. You say, all right, Kansas, give me the best D players you got that are on your Kansas rosters. Let's do it. Let's go to Florida. Let's play against all these other states, Missouri and Georgia, and in theory, every state can have a team. And they go down there and they play. Well, there's no like rhyme or reason to how players are selected. A lot of it dwells down to trying to make sure, like, I'm just gonna be honest. I have friends that have been on Challenge Cup teams, and I'm trying to word this to where it doesn't sound like I'm coming sideways at them, because I'm not. I've said these things to their face, but for somebody that might not know that I feel this way and that I've said these things to that person, they're going to think, oh, well, he's talking crap on that person. No, I've said it to them too. Like, I don't agree with it. First thing is, just like E, like, I don't think you should be able to go more than 1, maybe 2 years. Because again, if we're playing E-ball year after year after year after year, E is entry level. How can you be the best E player in your state 4 years in a row? Not to mention, like, let's showcase what else we got, right? Because I'm going 2 places with this one. We could showcase some other players the next year instead of sending the same guy, the same, however many years in a row. So maybe you could have so many years of eligibility at a certain level. Because again, where's the incentive to move up if you got a guy that's stuck in E and has been for the last 10 years playing E-ball, and he makes the Challenge Cup team every year? Like, if you're good enough to make the Challenge Cup team, which does make you one of the best players in theory, because that's what this is, right? We're taking the best team down there. Makes you what is regarded as one of the best players in your state at your level. Why are you still stuck in that? Why are you still stuck at that level? And then the other thing with it is, there's got to be some rhyme or reason to selection. Like, U-Trip needs to put a system in place. It doesn't need to be state directors decide this, state directors decide that. If U-Trip's going to run this thing, then they need to put in place, like, a standard and hold the states to it. Like, for example, your coach of your team, I feel like it's plenty fair to go to something like that with 2 coaches. I do. And this is going to basically apply to, like, the C level and below. It's like, once you get to B and above, your player pool is pretty small. So I don't know what to do with that. The player pool is considerably smaller, probably even going from comparing D and E to C, but especially being above your player pool smaller. So that this stuff can't really apply there, but I'm going to say D and E for sure, possibly C as well. But I feel like 2 coaches for an event like this is a good thing. Because, again, we're trying to compile all these great things, right? So let's get some great coaches. So your coach should be the winner of your state tournament. If that guy can't go, then it goes to second place. If that guy can't go, then it goes to third place. You got to work your way down the list that way. And, oh, well, what if I couldn't make the state tournament that day? Well, that's why it needs to be it needs to be a thing. It needs to be a thing to say, if you want to be eligible for the Challenge Cup, you need to do this. If you want to coach the Challenge Cup, you need to do this. And, people say, oh, well, what if he's a really good coach and he's on a bad team? Well, he's not that good of a coach then. So it starts with your coaching. Your coaching's got to be your state champions. And then from there, I'm just going to use... Oh, gosh, I just saw it. Okay, so Missouri does a spring state. It's just the first one I pulled up. And, okay, we have player awards, right? So I understand that they don't do player awards for every single tournament. But, again, UTRIP could put in place something that says, if you want to be eligible for this, show up at this. Your tournament MVPs should be the first people to get asked to go. Instead of, hey, I'll coach a team if nobody else wants to, and you just go out and grab a bunch of your buddies. And there's been some good teams put together with that for sure. And I also I cannot stand the argument of, oh, well, if you don't want it, you want to run a different way, you run a team next year. No. Like, what if I don't want to run a team, but I want to see this ran differently to give, because to me, not taking shots at anybody that's been there, right? Okay. But I've seen some teams down there that I'm like, this is the best you guys got. I'm not saying that I could be on that team, but I'm saying that as a collective state of players, this is the best you could send me. But it's because people dive on the grenade of wanting to be a coach and then just grab their buddies. Oh, you're limited on this many players off of each team. Well, I know for a fact that that's not upheld because I've seen a couple of examples of that. And it should be up to the director. Your director should know your players, right? I understand that your state director can't know every single player in the state, but I'm using Kansas City as an example, and I'm not throwing shade at KO. Oh man, because I'm using her name because that's everybody's going to go running. The KC Smack Talk board gets wild sometimes. Okay, so I'm not necessarily going at her. I'm using her as an example here because she has single-handedly. I should say single-handedly. She has a good group of people helping her. But it is her doing that. Kansas City is becoming like a mecca for softball. I mean, there's something every weekend. There's a lot of good teams. There's good turnouts at a lot of tournaments. Like it is becoming like a big thing. And like that's an example of you're running these tournaments. You're doing all this stuff. It's a big turnout for these big tournaments. I'm not saying you should know everybody by name, because there's a shitload of people there. You're not going to know everybody by name. But the standout players, I mean, if you're watching a game or two here or there, or you're poking your head in and out, or if you're seeing teams continuously show up at tournaments and play well, then we're going to kind of get familiar with these people, right? That's just kind of how it works, right? The director could make some elections as well. Maybe you could do tournament MVPs. Because like this spring state tournament here, say you do a spring state tournament. The tournament MVP, I'm just throwing names out here because they're straight off UTRIP's website. Last year for UTRIP Missouri Spring State at Bridgeton, Missouri on May 6th and 7th, the tournament MVP was Ethan Branch from KBS. Well, guess what, Ethan? You got yourself a trip to Florida. You have reserved a spot on the Challenge Cup team. You have a spot reserved for you because you were the MVP of this tournament. Do more tournaments like that and use that to assemble your team. Your tournament MVPs to assemble your teams. If one guy gets the award twice, well, then that's where the director choosing players could come in. That's where the coach maybe choosing a player or two could come in. But these guys should be the automatic vote. It should be the first thing that happens is those guys get the choice to say, I can go, I can't go. If they can't go, I get it. Because committing to going to Florida is a big thing. I mean, it's not cheap. It's at a weird time of the year for some people. So it's not necessarily convenient to just pack up and take off to Florida to go play softball. But if we want to give ourselves the best chance to go down there, then I feel like this is how we have to do it. Tony says, what if they're all shortstops? Well, I mean, here you go, buddy. Most shortstops are probably good anyway, right? I get what you're saying. Braylon says the issue with having directors put teams together is that they are also able to override the rules in place, i.e. X amount of players allowed from each team. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. So that's what I'm saying with you have your MVPs, and then you can have like you can work your way through this even from each tournament. It's going to be one player that gets to go. Your tournament MVP, then you got a defensive MVP. Then I've got an all-tournament team. You could find a way to rank these all-tournament team guys, and you just work your way down that list until you find a guy that's going to go. And then next time, it's somebody else. And Adam says you could send the state champions. Yeah, for sure. But the issue with that becomes you got chips. You got players that are C playing D. You got players that are D playing E. It's supposed to be only ranked players from that division down there. So that could get a little bit hairy. But I don't hate the idea of sending a state champion down there. But it's also hard to get a state champion, an entire state champion team to go down there. Because I'll say more times than not, I feel like a state champion is probably also planning on going to Worlds. And now we're just talking a shitload of travel. Because, I mean, that's 2 trips to Florida now in a short amount of time. We're talking about a 3 or 4 month window. And then we haven't even got to talking about how to afford this yet. In the argument of moving states to, 1, make it more affordable, and 2, more convenient for some teams to be able to make it. USSSA spent an absurd amount of money building that facility. It's not going to be anywhere but there. And I don't know that there's always a lot of teams down there because you got men's and women's and co-ed, and you got more than one division going at a time as well. I don't know of, and trust me, I'm sure there is, but how many places could host that many teams and run it efficiently? I think that's something else that maybe gets overlooked a little bit is a place that can have that much capacity. Or even if there is enough fields at a complex somewhere, can the area withstand that much? Can the area withstand teams from 50 states? We're just using 50 as the example. Teams from 50 states just dumping into town for the weekend. Your hotels are going to be full, VRBOs, whatever you're choosing to do. And then you got to think about airports and stuff too. Florida is just the easy answer. It really is. So it has to stay in Florida. I know that's not the popular answer, but it has to stay in Florida. As far as like affording to get down there, it shouldn't be U-Trip's responsibility because, again, this is just like I said, the tournament MVP gets his chance to go. And he makes the decision like he doesn't have to answer that day, but when it's time for the Challenge Cup team to be built, he can be thinking in the back of his mind, okay, I was a tournament MVP. I've got a chance to go to the Challenge Cup. I'm going to see if I can make that happen. Hang on, I got to sneeze. Okay, sorry. So, your state tournament guy, your state tournament or whatever tournament MVP could kind of set himself up to know, like, hey, I might have a chance to go. When he signs up for this thing, right? You kind of go into that knowing. And then, like, I'm just using Ethan here because he's pulled up on my screen. Ethan's like, oh, hell, it's May. I've got a chance to go play in the Challenge Cup because I'm the tournament MVP. I need to make sure that I can get down there. I want to go, so I'm going to make sure I can get there instead of, all right, well, it's December. Challenge Cup's next month. Do you want to go? Do you want to go? Oh, you ain't got no vacation? All right, that's cool. Can he go? What about you? Can you go? No, see, we're putting together a pickup team. And that's what I feel like the Challenge Cup is pickup teams. And there's been some good pickup teams, and I've been part of some good pickup teams. But it's nothing more than 10 or 12 guys that just want to go play ball for the weekend. Because I don't feel like the right things are in place to set this up to be successful, you might say. It's not that the Challenge Cup is a flop. I mean, people tune in. There's all kinds of people there. It's obviously working, right? But then there's also the argument of why do some states have two teams? I don't hate the idea of some states having two teams. You got to regulate that somehow. Maybe that's like a per capita thing with like how many teams you have. If you've got X amount of registered teams and you can send two teams. But you got to think, like, there's some states that might not have much of a program. And it's not from like a competition standpoint. I'm talking specifically from they may not have enough guys that want to go. And then you also get into teams out on the West Coast. I get it. It sucks, right? It's because it's a haul for those teams, and it's very expensive for those teams to go. But the harsh reality of it is it has to stay in Florida. It just has to. So I don't hate some states having two teams, and I also don't agree with teams having players from different states. Like I know of at least one player that was from Missouri that went and played on an Illinois team this year. If Missouri didn't have a team, then I guess they don't have a team. But Illinois has a team, so they need to find Illinois players. It's like the National League All-Stars saying, shit. We need a pitcher. Hey, can we borrow one from you guys, American League? Hey, can we borrow a pitcher from the Tigers? We don't have enough guys. You got plenty of guys. You're just not willing to choose one. What's up? What about Texas? What are you saying? Are you saying hosted in Texas? Is that what you're saying? It says came in late. Talking about Texas. Yeah, in Texas might be a place that could host something like that too. Like I said, there is places that could host that. But you also have to stop and think that Vieira was designed for events like this. So I don't know. I don't know if there's a good enough venue in Texas or not. Like I said, there might very well be. I'm not well traveled, but like I said, just everybody's always like, don't do it in Florida. Do it somewhere else. Do it somewhere different. Do it in the Midwest somewhere. Well, how the hell are you going to have a tournament in the Midwest in January or February? And like I said, the area has to be set up toward it too, because like Vieira, like it was placed there for a reason, and things are built around it for a reason. That area is built to sustain those events. I don't know that there's areas built to sustain. There's commercials at them. Let me. That's not cool. Okay. I made a change there. If they keep popping up, let me know. It usually gives me the opportunity to skip them, and I just skip them. Like I'm not about that. Like, sure, there's money coming in, but like I'm not doing this podcast for the money. I'm doing this podcast to rant and rave and be a talking head for a while, and sometimes have talking heads on with me. But Jensen says he's on the West Coast, and just like you said, it's a grind getting over there to Florida money wise. Yeah, and like I don't know the right answer to that either. A lot of people say, "Oh, well, U-Trip could foot the bill." Dude, think about the money that U-Trip would fork out to do that, though. Because, I mean, that's a lot of money. It's a lot of teams. So that's a lot of money. And I get it, but, like, at the same time, you got to remember, and this is another rant I'm going to get on real quick, and I'll circle back to this Challenge Cup thing. People pissing and moaning about prizes at tournaments. When you played Little League Baseball, did you get a trophy? Did you get a bunch of free bats? No. You got the chance to go play, and you played your ass off. You got your little medal, and you went on. Why do we need bats and gloves and all this other stuff? You do realize that they are there to make money too, right? And not to mention, is playing softball not enough? Since when do we need something every time we show up? It gets me, man. And I don't know if there's been a certain person from our area that's been making quite a stink about it here lately. And I don't know. I highly doubt that person's watching this. I don't think that person's a fan of the BP Hero, we'll say. But, like, what's wrong with just showing up and playing softball at a nice venue? To give an example, there was a big stink made a while back about showing up to the tournament that I had in the vlog. There was one of those style tournaments at the same place. It was a couple weeks later, I think. And somebody on the team that won the tournament had a cow that all they got was like a t-shirt or a medal, or somebody was going to order him some rings or something. Like, be happy you got anything. You got to play softball. You paid to play softball. You know, that's like, yeah, it's cool you won. What happened to just giving out a trophy? Remember 10 years ago, everybody, you know, there was one big ass trophy that got handed to the team, and then you went on about your day. Now we got everybody gets a plaque and everybody gets a ring, and oh, I don't want this cheesy ass plastic chain. Well, you could get nothing. You shouldn't get anything. What do you need? Do you need why? You're an adult. Why do you need that? What do you're not going to wear it, you're not going to use it. You want something that you can try and recoup money from your weekend. You want a bat, you want a bag. Be grateful. And yeah, Adam, there are times where they tell you normally up front what you're going to win. But like it's like I said, I'm not trying to directly attack this person. This person sparked a rant that I've seen this other places too. It's not just here. But like, what's so bad about just showing up, winning your tournament, taking your picture, and heading home? Don't stand and pout and whine and call people out on Facebook and go directly at someone's throat for choosing to get everybody's ring size or t-shirt size and then sending them some stuff. Be grateful you got anything. And like I said, what are you going to do with it? You're going to get a t-shirt. You're going to cut the sleeves off of it and go work in the yard in it. You're going to get a ring that probably costs $10 or $12 to make, and you're going to throw it in the bottom of your bag or forget about it. It's going to get lost in your car, or it's going to go somewhere at your house and you're never going to see it again. Do you really need to display that ring or that t-shirt to show everybody that you won a tournament when it was 40 degrees outside? State tournament, I get it. But if it ain't a state tournament, if it ain't something big, take your picture and move the fuck on. Bottom line. I don't know what else to say. Like, it's not worth engaging in these arguments on social media, because this person, it's this way with everything. This is why I don't really chime in on social media stuff a whole lot. By the time someone's ready to make a rant and they've got the balls to post their little rant, type it all up, and click post, they've already decided that they're right. They're not going to change their mind. They're not going to back down. They are going to die on the hill of being right. And they proclaim that to you by typing it all up and clicking post. That is them saying, I'm willing to die on this hill. So don't argue with them. Don't try and change their mind. You just say, good job, buddy. Good for you. And you move on. This person needs a pat on the back for winning something. So get your pat on your back and move on. I don't understand why we think we need something for everything. Do cash. Oh, well, we only got $200 back. That's $10 a person. It's $10 you didn't have. Well, it cost me $30 in gas to get here. Since when does entertainment have to be free? USSSA softball, USSSA as a whole, it's a business. It's not nonprofit. It's not here to make sure that you have fun and it's cheap for you. It is something that people do to make money, make a living, make extra money. It is a business. It's not there to make sure you have fun. It's a business, and it's going to be ran like one. If you don't like it, go play somewhere else. Go bowling. I don't know, anything. Besides piss and moan that you got a ring for winning a tournament that 5 years ago didn't give out anything. And Adam, I'm not even trying to take the route of guys that complain a lot usually don't win a lot. It's not even that. This, in this example that I'm talking about, this player is remotely successful, and he's not a bad player. So again, it was really weird for me to see this angle taken, see this attack made. I mean, it was basically an attack on social media of this director because of the things that she chose to do at this tournament. I just don't get it. You won, you take your picture, you go the fuck home. Anyway, back on track. I don't know what you do for raising money for the Challenge Cup. Because again, back to this is a business. USSSA said, hey, let's do a Challenge Cup that could draw in some teams in a slow time of the year. Like, think about it. You got to think with your business side of your mind a little bit too. Now, trust me, I'm not like the most business savvy person ever. I mean, yes, it's obviously, yes, I'm a rep for Headbanger Sports. I'm not doing this to try and make money. I'm not doing this to try and pad my pocket or pay extra bills. And I'm sure that there's definitely more that I could do from a sales standpoint, but like, I don't want to. But it's a business thing. Like, I don't consider this a business. I consider this a hobby. If it was a business, I'd post every day. Try to make sure that you knew that you could use code BPHero to get yourself something at headbangersports.com. I would make sure that you guys knew it was the only place to go was Headbanger Sports, whether it's through me or not. I would make damn sure that you knew about Headbanger Sports every day, because it would be a business. But this is business. This is a hobby to me. And it's the same thing with U-Trip. It's a business. So if they pay for your trip down there, then what? You've paid your tournament fee. You say they pay your trip down there, you pay your tournament fee. Well, how are they supposed to pay their umpires? The tournament fee is not going to cover all those umpires and running that whole facility. It's a business, bottom line. So I don't have the right answer to monetarily how to make things possible with that. And maybe it's something too that it could help the money wise if you knew ahead of time, right? Because a lot of times, here we are. Because if it's July, and I know the Challenge Cup is a thing. I'm using a little bit of an example here from a story that I heard here with the Challenge Cup this year. It's July. I know the Challenge Cup is a thing, but I have no idea that I'm going. I'm a caliber player worthy of going, but I don't know that I'm going because I haven't been asked. I have no clue that I'm in any conversation about going. Well, Challenge Cup's 2 months away. I make decent money, but I'm also savvy with my money. I don't want to, and I can't just dump a bunch of money to go to Florida to go on a trip. If this is something I knew that I had to save up for since July, I could make that happen. I could make sure I had time off of work. I could, say, okay, well, I can't take this trip because I'm going to Florida in the first or second week or whenever it is of January. So I need to save some time off. I need to save a little bit of money. If you knew ahead of time, again, going back to our guy Ethan Branch here, he's the tournament MVP of the Spring State. Hell, it's May. My guy's got 6 or 7 months to pocket some money, make a little bit of money. His team has got a chance to get that going. The director's got a chance to maybe rat hole a little bit of money. So, again, with finding a different system to get these players could also help with the monetary standpoint of things. I don't feel it's U-Trip's responsibility to make sure you get down there. I don't feel like it's U-Trip's responsibility to let you pay for free. Because again, this is a business. You choose to participate in their business. You choose to be a customer. Just like this person that's not happy about the prizes. You chose to be a customer. I'm sorry you didn't like what you had, but you keep coming back. So, in conclusion, how do you fix the Challenge Cup? You have yourself some tournaments. Say tournament MVP, defensive MVP, offensive MVP, however you want to do it. You get this award, you're automatically eligible for the Challenge Cup. Need coaches? Well, guess what? First, second, third, fourth, you start at your state tournament and you go down the line until you find 2 coaches that can commit. Now, I understand we're talking state tournament. It is a little bit late in the year, but if you had the idea, had the inkling that this could be a thing, you could set yourself up for it, right? Then making sure that we have enough teams to go. Everybody's saying, oh, well, there's the 2-state thing. I don't mind the 2-state thing. I know it's kind of awkward and it's kind of weird to have like Florida. Did one state have 3 teams? And I remember seeing that somewhere. But per capita, if you've got enough, then you've got enough, because without those teams, without those states having multiple teams, you're not going to have very many teams down there. You got to stop and think about that too, because for every state that doesn't send a team, you're going to have another team come from somewhere to kind of make this worth the trip. Would you go down there for a 20-team tournament? Probably not. But now you got a handful of teams with gosh dang it, I can't talk tonight. Now you got a handful of states with multiple teams. Now all of a sudden it's like, hey, this might be worth a trip. There's going to be a lot of teams down there. The Q says, my problem with the MVP thing is, what if the guy just caught lightning in a bottle on that one day? Are they still worthy of going? Hell yeah, they're worthy of going. Because everybody else knew. Everybody else knew what was on the line. Like, I genuinely get your argument. But, again, who's to say you can't catch that lightning down there in a bottle again? And again, you're You're going to have multiple states that might have a guy that catches lightning in a bottle on that day. You know, that's the thing about it. And that's also part of the experience too, right? Like, to say, oh, yeah, hey, you know, you tell your friends, you tell your family, people that might care about your, not like they're going to come to your games, but they care that you care about your hobby, your slow pitch hobby. Yeah, I was tournament MVP today, and I'm eligible for a trip to Florida now. Oh, that's freaking awesome. It's also about the experience too, right? So if that's how it is, that's how it is. You got to put the rules in place and then you follow them. Let's see. So Braylon says, not to be negative, but if you were from a different area, one that the teams generally perform well at the Challenge Cup, Georgia, Florida, and Ohio, would you have a more positive view of how it's run? I think it would be the same no matter what. I don't. First of all, I don't take that as negative. I feel like sometimes people hold their tongue on here because they're worried about upsetting someone. But I'm gonna tell you, durability is 10 out of 10. You can't upset me. I mean, Missouri D team had a pretty decent run this year, so it's not even that. Like, it has nothing to do with how good the teams are. It has to do with there's a lot of buddy ball that takes place. And I don't know these Georgia and Florida and Ohio teams that do really well. I don't know those guys. I don't know anything about those guys, but you see it you see people talking everywhere. Oh, it's just buddy ball. It's, you know, who can go on that weekend. It's pickup ball. Are those pickup? I don't know. Are those pickup teams as well? But imagine holding those to the same standard. That's my thing with it. I don't care who wins what or anything else. I respect where you're coming from. That's a fair question for sure. It has nothing to do with how teams do. It has to do with how teams are selected. And I'm not saying that like the team is selected in a way that makes their maybe a bad representation for the state. That's not where I'm going with this whole rant. Where I'm going with this whole rant is like I'm trying to choose my words wisely here. Where I'm going with the rant is it just seems very unorganized. And what the hell is that? My computer fan decides it needs to go at full blast all of a sudden. My rant is with how it's organized, and you know, I just from the outside looking in see where a certain player got passed over because he didn't know who was running the team to reach out, or a certain player got passed over because he's not from the area that the coach was. The coach, more times than not, is going to pick players from the area that he lives in. Right? I mean, why wouldn't he? Because that's who he knows. Just using towns as an example here, if you're familiar with the state of Missouri, you got Kansas City on one side, you got St. Louis on the other. They are literally bordering. There are cities that are bordered on the state lines. So you tell me that if the coach is selected from St. Louis, that he's going to know about all the talent in Kansas City? He's going to take the guys from St. Louis and the areas and the guys that come to St. Louis to play. He ain't going to know nothing about nobody in Kansas City. So how's he going to know? How's he going to know that the best players in Kansas City would be willing to go and they might be better than the players that are in St. Louis? Or what if those guys wanted to go, but they never got an opportunity? They didn't know. They didn't know the coach to say, hey, who's running the Challenge Cup team? Oh, I don't know. You know, by the time they figure out somebody to reach out, it's too late. The coach has already decided who he's taking. Just checks and balances, right? I guess you could say in a way. So Q says, after chatting with a lot of other coaches, I think there needs to be a rule that covers the nation and not state to state. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like this doesn't need to be state level. This needs to be like when U-Trip announces the Challenge Cup, these are the rules that come out with it. I'm not talking state to state. You know, like in Missouri, for example, you know, when you play D, it's not, you know, home runs. You used to have, you know, runner for the pitcher. Runner for the pitcher is still a thing here as far as I know. We get a runner for the pitcher here in Missouri in U-Trip. But I'm not sure you do anywhere else. or IEO rules. For a few years they were playing D, you didn't have IEOs. It was just HROs. And then you go play, states or world or anything else. Now all of a sudden that's IEOs. So, like, each state makes their own rules. It has their own rendition of the rules. So you're going to have different things everywhere you go. But if UTRIP comes out and says, this is how we're doing this, and this is how it's going to go, guess what? That's how it's going to go. Oh yeah, no, Braylon. You're good. I didn't think you were getting sideways with what you said. It is very hard to read tone via text. I didn't think you were being confrontational at all. See, Rodney Lewis, does Wichita even have softball? Right. I mean, dude, who knows? Yeah, and Q, maybe you've got a point there. So Q says it was nice that with this year's team we had two coaches. One was from St. Louis and one was from Kansas City. So that's a very good point. Maybe you have a coach from one of the busier areas, and then you have a coach from one of the other busier areas. But at a state tournament, in theory, you could have that possibly, but you could also have, like, just using Kansas City for the example, Kansas City teams, 1 and 2, when you've got the same thing again. So it would be hard to kind of diversify your player pool a little bit. And you know what? I'm not going to get on that rant. That's kind of a sidebar rant of why don't they hold state tournaments in central locations? I understand that every state might not be set up that way. So again, Kansas City's on one border, St. Louis is on the other. They're about 5 hours apart. We have Columbia, which is right in the middle, and it's got a extremely nice complex with, 6 fields? There's no reason you couldn't have a state tournament there. And you bring teams from both places to play. Instead of having a Missouri-Kansas state tournament, have a Missouri state tournament. I don't know. Food for thought. So Jensen says for us in Cali, a lot of our best players just can't swing Florida. But what happens here, just like you said, it gets to the point where who can even go on vacation and funds. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I understand that it gets to that point, and I get it. So it would have to trickle down at some point where, you got to draw the line on, MVPs and this and that. But that they need to be the first selection, no question. They need to openly be the first selection. And again, like I said, if I win, you have these throughout the year. You're not doing your state tournament and your MVP gets to go because you got to have 10 more guys to field your team. So you could even have a tournament, say your spring state tournament. You could have tournament MVP / Challenge Cup Selection 1, Challenge Cup Selection 2. You could do it that way. And then in May, I know, okay, well, you can say then, I can go or I can't go. And you can, okay, well, I know I need to be in Florida in January. Let me set myself up for that. Instead of at the end of November, you get a month and a half notice to pack up and go to Florida. It would make the guys that have a long trip to make maybe a little bit easier to make the trip as well. And again, with, you want to have fundraiser tournaments and stuff like that. I know that happens at places too. Well, now you can have a fundraiser tournament. You can have a couple of them throughout the summer to raise the funds to get this team down there, instead of hoping to God that it's going to be warm enough for you to have a tournament before you have to leave. Another problem is most of Kansas City is UTRIP and St. Louis is GSL. Okay, well, fair. I don't really have a good answer to that. I mean, GSL is UTRIP anyway, right? Fair point. So maybe since UTRIP and GSL are ran the same, maybe you still incentivize the same thing, because it's essentially the same thing with the DHH added. UTRIP is GSL, so Back-to-back C-State champs. Okay, let's go. No bump, huh? Huh? All right, guys. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up. I wanted to get that rant out there. Planning on having a guest here. Don't know who, but we're back on the 20 videos a month grind. It's kind of shot for that. About July of last year, I made the commitment to do 20 videos a month, and it made a world of difference with traffic on the channel, consistent traffic on the channel. The channel did really well last year towards the end of the year. It's time that we can get outside again and start getting a little bit of content going. So we're going to strive for that again. Shoot for 20 videos a month and see what that gets us. The podcast isn't easy for. I sit here and be a talking head or find someone to be a talking head with me. Q says not 20. It's when I lose my COD buddy when that happens. Yeah, well, when it gets warm outside, you're probably doomed anyway, pal. We do need to play some COD soon. Maybe tomorrow. It is Friday, and I don't think I have to work the weekend. Thank goodness. Yikes. So, that said, we're on the grind. If you guys got any video ideas or anything like that, I'm all ears. I got to make something you guys want to watch. So if you got ideas, let's hear them. But I think it's going to wrap it up for this podcast here. Thank you guys for stopping in and checking out, listening to my hour and 12-minute talking head session. And hopefully nobody's phones that are subscribed to my other channel that I just do random shit on went off because I went live on that channel first. I think I got the video deleted. I'm like sitting here like, what is going on? Why is nobody here? And I was like, oh, wait a minute. So I think that's why we live here at like 9:03 or 9:04. So yeah, whoops. So I hope you enjoyed it. Yes, Q, it is about time for another random road trip vlog. So, sweetheart, in case you hit it, and BP Hero will catch you on Saturday in the newest upload.